Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a literally unprecedented diplomatic moment. We're looking at a live, 20-minute breaking news broadcast that perfectly captures the absolute razor's edge of modern geopolitics. On one hand, we've got historic, high-stakes diplomacy unfolding in Europe, and then on the exact same day, incredibly aggressive existential military threats are being broadcast to the world. It's basically a masterclass in tension, and we're going to break down exactly what was said, what it actually means, and why it's absolutely crucial to global stability.
Okay, let's map out exactly how we're going to break this all down today. First, we've got the Fox News interview, then threats over the Strait. From there, we'll dive into the nuclear negotiations, before exploring a surprising stance on Israel, and finally, we're going to tie the whole thing together with the ticking clock.
All right, Section 1, the Fox News interview, a live debrief.
Now, sourcing from Chief Foreign Correspondent Trey Yingst's live debrief of a 20-minute phone call with Donald Trump, what's really wild here is the stark contrast happening simultaneously. It's a dynamic the broadcast hosts explicitly called out as a sort of good cop, bad cop routine. You've got Vice President J.D. Vance physically on the ground in Luzern, Switzerland, engaging in historic, high-level diplomatic peace talks with leaders from Qatar, Pakistan, and Iranian representatives. He's trying to lay out a path for a fundamentally different relationship. But at the exact same moment, you have Donald Trump on the phone with the press, delivering these fierce ultimatums and really aggressive rhetoric. It's a fascinating dual-track geopolitical strategy playing out live.
Let's move right into Section 2, threats over the Strait, economic choke points.
So we start with a major regional flashpoint. The broadcast reported a direct threat from Iran's IRGC. They are literally threatening to shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And what's really critical for you to take away here is the catalyst for this. Iran is stating that this is a direct response to Israeli military strikes against Hezbollah in Lebanon. It perfectly illustrates how a localized military conflict on the Mediterranean coast can just instantly spill over to threaten one of the world's most vital international shipping lanes over in the Persian Gulf. 19 million. According to the interview, 19 million barrels of crude oil exited the Persian Gulf just yesterday. The reporter noted that because things had been stalled for a bit, there was this massive backlog, and suddenly the oil was just gushing out. Think about that for a second. This single number shows you exactly how much economic leverage is at play here. Shutting down this waterway doesn't just inconvenience a couple of nations, it sends immediate, absolutely crippling shockwaves through the entire global economy.
Well, in response to those Iranian threats, the report details a rather bold strategic concept proposed by President Trump. He warned that, if necessary, the United States would step in, basically take over the Strait of Hormuz, and act as its guardian angel. Essentially, if international shipping is threatened, the U.S. military, specifically the Navy, which the report noted has historically enforced economic pressure in that region, would forcefully secure and control the waterway to make sure free passage continues. But wait, to push this even further, there is actually a proposed cost attached to this guardian angel protection. The president stated that if the U.S. has to take over the strait, they would ultimately collect a 20% toll on all the oil passing through it as compensation. That is a massive assertion of leverage. It's essentially sending a message to both adversaries and allies, hey, if the U.S. secures the economic route, the U.S. takes a significant cut of the trade. So the sheer escalation of the rhetoric here is intense. When discussing the Strait of Hormuz with Iranian officials overnight, the report quotes Trump delivering this stark, honestly chilling ultimatum. You close it, and you won't have a country. And the reporter noted the president went even farther on the call, literally telling officials they wouldn't even make it back to their country. The diplomatic gloves, at least when it comes to maritime security, were entirely off.
Okay, Section 3, the nuclear negotiations, pushback in Switzerland. Over during the broadcast, they played a direct clip of the Iranian president pushing back hard against U.S. demands, stating, "We will not give up our right to enrichment, and they, too, will be forced to accept it." He explicitly rejected the idea that Iran must surrender unconditionally, so right out of the gate, that creates a massive, immediate roadblock for the U.S. negotiating team right as these talks were getting underway. The reporter then shared Trump's direct, real-time reaction to those specific comments from the Iranian president, and it created this high-stakes verbal ping-pong match. Trump's response was incredibly blunt. Quote, "He better watch his mouth, he better shape up, or I'll take over the rest of the country." You can really see the intense friction between the meticulous diplomatic process happening over in Europe and the raw, aggressive public posturing happening in the press.
Yet despite those incredibly harsh words, the report noted a truly fascinating detail that shows the underlying strategy here. Notice the careful balancing act. While the U.S. is strictly demanding the dismantlement of Iran's 60% highly enriched weapons-grade uranium program, Trump actually left the door open for a future civilian enrichment program. This is so vital to understand. It shows that beneath all the explosive rhetoric, there are specific, calculated off-ramps and parameters being set for a potential long-term agreement.
Moving on to Section 4, a surprising stance on Israel, the Northern Front. Now we're looking at a highly controversial suggestion regarding this conflict. To really grasp this stance, we first need to look at the facts on the ground as outlined in the segment. Over the weekend, 5 IDF soldiers were killed by Hezbollah. In response, Israel launched a heavy series of airstrikes across southern Lebanon. But the reporter highlighted President Trump's distinct frustration with this tactic. The president expressed disappointment, stating that Israel can't seem to fight without knocking buildings down. Basically, he views the current approach as overly destructive and counterproductive.
So what's the proposed alternative? Well, instead of the current reality of Israeli airstrikes, the proposed action shifts entirely, empowering Syria's Bashar al-Assad to go into southern Lebanon and fight Hezbollah on the ground. The rationale presented in the interview is that Assad would do a more precise job on the ground, which would eliminate the need to level buildings from the air. I mean, it is a major, totally unexpected proposed shift in regional alliances and military strategy.
Which brings us to Section 5, the ticking clock, the 60-day option.
To tie all of these geopolitical hotspots together, we really need to look at the overarching diplomatic timeline discussed in the report. The reporter emphasized a critical piece of context that grounds all of this rhetoric. The current memorandum of understanding between the U.S. and Iran, it's not a finalized peace deal. Tracking the timeline, the MOU signing is in the past. Right now, in the present, they are merely engaged in temporary ceasefire extension talks. But looking to the future, there is a strict 60-day window. This is a hard deadline before the decision period closes entirely. And the president made his position crystal clear regarding this time frame. Quoting him directly from the broadcast, "I have a 60-day option and I can do whatever I want after that option." This is the ultimate leverage play. He is explicitly keeping every single military and diplomatic option on the table if Iran does not make serious, tangible commitments regarding their nuclear program before that clock runs out. So we have historic, delicate peace talks, attempting to forge a totally new path on one side, and unprecedented existential military threats on the other. With the global economy, regional alliances, and nuclear proliferation all hanging in the balance, what exactly will unfold when this 60-day ticking clock finally hits zero? Thank you so much for joining us for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on the chessboard.